Good morning, everybody. Now we're just waiting for everybody to come in the door. We'll just give you a few seconds to make your connections, get yourself settled, grab a cup of tea. I'll do likewise. Now, hopefully you've got a better day down there than we have up here. But anyway, yeah, so I'm Brenda and I'm one of the Crowdfund Scotland team. And I'm going to be joined very shortly by my colleague Kirsty. Hey Kirsty, you've gone mute. I need your sound.
Sorry, that's me. I'm too busy faffing around with the slides. Hello, everybody. My name is Kirsty.
Yeah, at least this is good for us to get any mistakes we make. We'll get them out of the way in the first few seconds. So let's do a wee bit of introductory stuff just to give people time to get settled. I'll hand it to Kirsty.
Okay, so just a couple of quick housekeeping points, really, keep everybody right. So we've got an hour scheduled for today. It's a fairly full agenda, so it's going to be reasonably fast-paced. And just to make sure we get everything covered, what to do is if you have any questions throughout the session, pop them into the chat box on the left, on your right-hand side, and we'll answer them all at the end of the whole session. We'll do a quick Q&A. Part there. So the webinar is recorded, just so you know, and so everybody will be sent a link out to be able to watch back if you want to refresh your memories. In case anybody is wondering if we can see you, we can't see you, you only see us. There's no two-way vision here. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to pass over to you, Brenda, just to quick rundown of the agenda.
Okay, and thanks to everybody for putting your hellos in there. It's really good just to get to know that there's life out there. So what we're doing today is this is a train the trainer session, and the idea is that you'll leave this having a good understanding of how crowdfunding works. And the reason we're doing this is that we leave a kind of a legacy. After we're part of a Leader project that runs for 2 years. We're funded by Leader to work in rural areas. And once we're gone, we'll have left people like yourselves who really know how crowdfunding works. If you're working with charities, businesses, individuals who are considering crowdfunding, you'll be able to give them some signposting and basically some advice on it. Okay. So first of all, we work for Crowdfunder UK, and that's we're an internet-based company or platform that deals in crowdfunding. And then part of that is we're the Scotland team, and we work with rural Scotland. So we're soon, because this is kind of a train the trainer, that you know what crowdfunding is, but a very quick version in a nutshell is if people have a project, they want to go out and they get funding for it, the basic idea is that you get a lot of people to put a little bit of money in. And you do that using largely the internet. So the idea is you get a project idea, you go onto the Crowdfunder website and you put a page together. You'll get some ideas around your project, kinds of rewards that people can get in return for the donations. You get the word out far and wide. People hear about your project, and if they like your project and your rewards, they'll donate money to that. And that's how your project comes together. That is crowdfunding in a nutshell. Now, we are, in the UK, we are the biggest rewards-based crowdfunder. As I mentioned, they're now getting money in return for whatever you donate. We also have people who they'll just have a straightforward donations one that's quite typical for charities, or maybe somebody running a marathon. We also do a wee bit of it around, shares in companies and community enterprises. But mainly what we do and what we're going to look at today is what we call rewards-based crowdfunding. So we're going to, let's say, I specialise in Greater Renfrewshire and Inverclyde because we cover 9 of the Leader areas. So yeah, we particularly work with people in rural areas. Now, Kirsty is going to start us off with a wee poll.
Yes, I am indeed. So what we want to do is just get a feel for where you all sit with crowdfunding experience. So there's a quick question in the chat box, should be now, says, have you ever donated to a crowdfunder before, regardless of which platform it was on? Just want to get a feel for anyone who's done that before. I'll give that a few seconds to settle on the results. jumping around a little bit. I'm not sure if everybody can see these results. I'm not sure. Hopefully you can, but I'll tell you the final result.
This is actually a good few more than usual in terms of experience.
Yep. Oh, jumping around. That looks fairly steady now. Okay, yeah, so we've got 64% say yes, 30, that should be 36%, I think, say no. That up a little bit. So good, great. Brilliant. So that's quite interesting to see that quite a few of you have actually given to
It's usually about 50-50, so it's really heartening to know that in the greater Renfrewshire and Inverclyde area, 2 out of 3 of you have got experience to this. That's exactly what we want to see in a train the trainer session. So
yeah,
great,
brilliant. Right, so let's crack on with some of the slides then. So we've talked about, we've introduced the fact that how crowdfunding works. With Crowdfunder, we have 2 different ways that people can raise funds on Crowdfunder. And it suits different types of projects. So the first one is called All or Nothing. And that is kind of as it sounds, the project owner will set their target of how much they want to raise. And they aim to reach that target. And if they do, then brilliant, they get all money paid out to them. If they don't hit their target, however, the project will close and the money is all refunded to the people who have pledged it. That's like ground zero. It's good for projects who need a certain amount of money before they can even get off the ground. And it would be a little bit dishonest if they took people's money but didn't put it towards that project, that they would be using it for something else. And it's almost like asking for money under false pretenses. So it suits projects like that. It also can provide a really good motivation to both the project owner to put a lot of effort into achieving their target, and it can give a bit more motivation to supporters as well, knowing that the project's only going to get the money if they reach their target. The opposite of that, or the alternative rather, is flexible funding. Keep what you raise. So they set their target. If they don't reach it, that's fine. They get to keep whatever they do raise. And that's really good for projects that can use some money, regardless of how much they raise. It will help towards the project, and they don't necessarily need, X amount just to get started. So the project owner chooses upfront what type of funding method suits them the best. Sticking on the money front, let's just cover off the fees. So Crowdfunder is a commercial company, so we have to make money somehow, and we do that ordinarily through a platform fee that we charge. So there's a 3% plus VAT that we charge to the projects. We also, obviously, it's all online card transactions for the donations and the pledges. So we work with a third-party company called Stripe, who manage those for us, and their transaction fees are 1.67% of the total of the pledge, plus 25 pence per pledge, plus VAT. So there's a bit of a variable in there of the 25 pence per pledge, because we never know how many pledges exactly are going to be received. So we tend to say roll it all up into when somebody's setting their target, they should add around sort of 5 to 6% of their target amount onto the target to cover those fees. And the fees are deducted at the end before we pay out the money to the project. If they're VAT registered, they can claim it back, and the monies are paid out to the project within 7 working days of it closing. And just whilst we're talking about fees, if they happen to have an all or nothing project and end up, the pledges are refunded, the project has not charged any fees either. Okay. So Brenda's just going to run through the benefits.
Yeah. So the big question is always, why bother? I mean, the most obvious thing is people do it for the money, but is it just about raising the money? You get a lot more out of it than just getting the money in for your project. And we know that because Crowdfunder encourages us as staff to run our own projects. The first added benefit you get is it's a really good way to test your project idea, whether you're a business or it could be a new theme for a charity. It means that you can validate it So say, for example, say you're a business and you want to set up a brand new business, you'll get a feel from the response of the crowd about whether or not your product suits their needs. Sometimes you'll find that some products or rewards go off the shelves more quickly than others. It's a good way to test whether or not your marketing skills and your marketing strategy is getting to the right people as well. So it's almost like a petri dish to test what you're doing. The second thing is, I touched on marketing earlier. To run a successful crowdfunder, you have to come up with a marketing plan. It's all about getting the news out far and wide. You will automatically, as part of it, raise the awareness of what you're doing. It's one of the most exciting projects you can run, so it's a great way to run a marketing campaign. So you will raise awareness of whatever you're doing. The third thing is advocates. If somebody is interested enough and supportive enough of your project to have reached for the wallet or purse, they tend to buy into your project long term. We see projects all the time as coaches, and we find that once you actually put money onto a project, you keep an eye on it. You feel like you're invested in it, and you tend to go back to it again and again. So you can get very valuable long-term supporters and clients as a result of that. It's a good way to build your membership. You'll learn new skills. Even though we work on this all the time, we're constantly learning new skills around crowdfunding. It is largely internet-based, and so it will push you to get a bit more proficient in social media and video, things like that. So you will learn, and you'll learn to work with new people who can bring these skills too. And the final bit is extra funding. There's various companies, various crowdfunding organizations in the UK, but one way that we're a bit different is we work with a lot of funding partners because a lot of them will have things they want to come in on. And we'll say we'll work with a lot of projects, we'll flag them up to you. And Kirsty's going to go into this later on. But so sometimes coming in with us means that you can get access to other funds too. Okay, so it's not just about the money. I'm going to go into a bit more about rewards and donations. When you set up a project page, and you'll see an example of that shortly, every page has got a straightforward donate button so people can put in whatever they want. But the majority of projects that we work with also, they go down the rewards route. And one of the benefits of rewards is that people tend to donate a higher amount if they're going to get a reward in return for it. Over the years, we've had more than £100 million worth of projects come through Crowdfunder. That's not our money, that's other people's money. And the average donation that people will make, just straightforward cash, is about £12. But if there's a reward involved, people are more inclined to put that bit more in, because then they look at a reward that is of the nature and the price point that they're comfortable with. So we find the average amount of people come in on a reward is closer to £50. So that's one of the reasons we encourage people to go down that route. It's a bit more interesting. So the main types, I'll give you some examples of the types of rewards you could get. Most common one is probably products and services. So that's basically, say you were a cafe or you were a theatre, you would take whatever it is you do on a day-to-day basis, maybe theatre tickets, or you could, if it's a cafe getting back off the ground after COVID-19, they might say, if you pledge £10, we'll send you a voucher and come in and pick up a cup of coffee and a sandwich. For people that are hard to buy for, like most of my family, we find that experiences can work well. So that can be, you could go out, an outdoor company could run something like this. It could be a day as a zookeeper with Edinburgh Zoo. It could be for events. It could be going along to a drive-in picture show, anything like that. So we encourage people to be as creative as possible. Corporate sponsorship, sometimes they will tend to come in, organizations or companies to go for the higher end projects. So I'm going to show you a project in a wee bit, and their most expensive project was about, a reward was about £400, and that was an opportunity for a company to buy something that could go into a school. So corporate can work well. But at the opposite end, sometimes people want to support you, but they don't actually have much cash. They might just have a fiver or something, or 10 quid, in which case you can send them a thank you. I've had thank you cards, postcards from the Scouts or the Brownies. Sometimes it's a shout out on Facebook or an email. It's something that just gives you an acknowledgement. So we say to people, get creative with it. You know your audience. Okay, over to you, Kirsty.
Okay, so we're going to have a quick rundown now of how you in your position can help projects. So the do's and don'ts. So, excuse me. The three key things that you'd be looking to do is signpost them to further help and resources, empower them by giving them the information that they need, helping them make decisions, and then support them through those decisions. So let's just look at the key things then that you can do. So signposting them, as I say, to relevant guides and links. There's a lot of information on our website, it's a good idea for you to become familiar with just over time. A few minutes here, a few minutes there. We know you're all busy, but it's worth just dipping in and seeing what's available so that you can then signpost anybody to those resources. Ask about their projects and apply your knowledge of crowdfunding to how they might piece a campaign together. So it's good to have a chat through their project ideas to make sure they're on the right track, make sure it is a viable project. They might have a great idea, but it just might not be quite right for crowdfunding. Sometimes it's not. It's very adaptable, but it doesn't apply to all situations. Or they might just need to make a couple of tweaks to make it work. So it's worth just having that chat early doors, make sure they've got on the right path. If you can, get them to commit to a go live date, or certainly sit down and think about their timeline. When do they need the money, and work backwards from that. We're going to be touching a little bit later on the sort of timeline, but we generally say you need to leave about a month for the crowdfunding. It requires about a month's worth of planning as well. So you're looking 2 to 3 months in advance of getting the money. Reassure them at some point all projects do go through a slow patch. The standard sort of pattern that we see is a peak and then a trough and then a peak of pledges towards the end. So just support them through that, reassure them, and give them the confidence to keep going and keep motivated. Things that we would say try and avoid doing is spending time actually creating the project page for them. We have a very good, easy to use system for setting up or platform for setting up projects. So encourage them to get involved, give them that responsibility and the accountability, and trying to take a step back from the actual mechanics of setting it up for them. Try not to do the project marketing. Certainly, again, give them pointers, but try not to actually do it unless you are personally involved in the project, in which case obviously tell lots of people about it. But generally they should take responsibility for that as well. It might sound obvious to say, but try and avoid promising that they will get funded. We don't want any over-promising or false expectations. Don't accept responsibility when they don't get funded, or if they don't get funded rather, and try not to assist with the campaign delivery post-funding, again, unless it's something that you're personally or professionally involved in. But there's quite a lot for project owners to do, and it's probably one of the key things that we have an issue with up front with project owners, is just making it absolutely clear to them how much work is involved. It's a great thing to do crowdfunding, but it does take a certain level of commitment. Warning signs for what could be a poor or unsuccessful project. So if they are constantly too busy to chat about it, and they're too busy to crowdfund, then it's not going to work. They need the time resource. So a lot of it does come down to making sure they're doing it at the right time, which leads on to number 2 there. A lack of planning and time set aside it's a really key thing. It's not just about getting it live, it's then about supporting it right through that live period as well. If they have an incoherent or unconvincing story as well, so if they're not able to tell the story clearly and succinctly to you, as in what they're trying to achieve, what their main aim is of the project, then they're going to really struggle to tell that story to their audience. So they need to be able to do that first off and make sure they're getting a clear message across. If there's intangible public or supporter benefit, so again, that comes in with a story. If they can't tell you what the benefits of that project is going to be once they get the money in, then they're going to struggle to build any kind of trust between them and the audience, because the audience won't know where the money's going. I'll just get a celebrity to post about it. Big warning sign that, so they're not, they potentially don't have a great network to rely on already, and they're thinking it's fine, we've got a patron of the charity, for example, they'll do all the tweeting for us. But that generally doesn't work. That person might do 1 or 2 tweets at the most, and then that'll be it. That, you know, that they're not going to be the main source of pledges, so they do have to think about their network. Relying heavily on one group or source of funding, similar type of thing there. So yes, they might have a great Facebook following, but they can't just rely on that. They need to do other methods of promotion, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later on as well.
Okay. So, but they're not on their own, and you're not on your own either. There's a lot of really good resources out there. And I suppose one of the things, what we're doing today is about train the trainers. So that's where we're trying to make sure that we have people with a good level of expertise scattered throughout the leader areas. So that's what we're all about today. We also run quite a lot of workshops and online learning webinars, and we'll give you some links to that at the end. Because the good thing about COVID is it's meant that we're recording everything, and you can go back and watch it later on. You can go back and watch this later on. There's your evening's viewing sorted out. But it's really useful to be able for people to come along to specialist workshops that we run. And we have the online learning program that we have helps to consolidate everything that we talk about as well. If you're in, I mentioned that we're funded by Leader. So Kirsten, the rest of the team, myself, we work with people who are in kind of the rural postcodes. And if you're in one of the rural areas, then you can get one-to-one coaching with Crowdfund Scotland coaches. So we spend a lot of time chatting to people, talking them through their project ideas, and that's really, really valuable. We also have a series of 3 online guides. I'm going to talk you through those in a minute, but they will, if you follow these 3 guides, they will walk you through the whole process of how to set your project up and how to run it. We'll come to that in more detail in a moment. We also have a thing called the Accelerator Program. Now, I don't know if any of you have been involved in this. It tends to be a thing it's on Facebook. It's when you get a group of people and they, you know, like in our case, project owners and coaches, and we'll spend about 2 weeks working together in a Facebook group where we give them our tips, our best tips that we've learned ourselves and also from our other colleagues in the UK, and they're all pulled together. And so it's like almost like a hothouse or a fast track group, and people get to swap ideas on what their projects are. So it's really, really useful to take part in. I know I've been in these before and I found them really useful. We have live customer support. We have a small team of people down in Newquay and Cornwall, and they are the experts on everything Crowdfunder, because we keep finding new questions and we're always contacting them saying, help, what do you do with this? They always get back to you quickly. They're really nice, really approachable, really fast. And they'll send you the personalised email advice, as do we when we're in contact with projects. We'll do follow-up emails as well. We also, if you're familiar with Google Analytics, you're able to go in when you have a project page, you can go in and see the data behind that. We'll look at that in more detail in a minute. But all of these things together means that you've got a lot of tools that help you to run your Crowdfunder project. So I mentioned that we have these 3 guides, and you can just download them. And the first one, I think it's the most important one. It's all about planning. If you do your planning well, then the rest, it takes the risk out of it, the scariness out of the whole process. You know exactly how you're going to be running your Crowdfunder, and you'll have a reasonable idea of where your money is going to be coming from. So it takes you through just all the stuff about building your audience and making sure you're really clear what you're going to be doing. The second one is all about getting your page together. And Kirsten and I are going to show you some examples of what pages and videos look like. And then the third one is when you've got it up and running. You don't just sit back on your laurels. You have to nurture it. Just think of like trying to get a fire going from a spark. You have to be organized, and you have to just go through and make that, nurture the project and make it come to life. These guys will take it all the way through that. Okay. On planning.
Okay, so yeah, let's have just a quick look at the key elements of the planning stages. So we talked about building a team. What do we mean by that? Well, there's quite a lot to do with crowdfunding, as in different responsibilities. So it does require a good diverse range of skills. So obviously you've got your project leader, who's the project owner ordinarily, coordinating everything. But if they want to have people around them with those different skills. So you've got the planning, you need some organizational skills, be able to put together, at least write down a good timeline. If you've got the ability and the resources to do sort of an Excel spreadsheet, then even better. So making sure all the pieces are fit and lined up. Making the videos. So we're going to come on to videos and the benefits of them in a very short while. But if the project owner doesn't have the experience of making a video, it can be quite good for them to lean on somebody who does. A lot of the time, the younger people who are doing videos all the time on their phones are good at this. So we always suggest, if you've got younger generation in your family or anybody else that you're involved in with a charity, for example, if you've got some young volunteers, try and get them involved in doing that. It doesn't need to be a blockbuster, but it needs to be decent. We need somebody who's good at writing, so a bit of a wordsmith who is going to be able to put a good, decent and clear story together so that it reads well, it hangs well on the page. And from that perspective, we always suggest people ask for feedback. So even if you've not got anybody who's brilliant at writing to help you, or you're not great yourself as a project owner, at the very least, just do go out to friends and family for feedback and make sure that when they read it, they understand it. Creating the page, again, we've mentioned that we do have a really easy to use platform, but you do need a bit of basic technical ability to do that. So if you're not ordinarily a computer user, again, finding someone that can help you do that. And you need a little bit of a creative streak, I would say, in terms of putting the page together, make it look good as well. Promoting the project, that's where you want as many people as possible involved. So you do want people who are confident to talk to people and will be happy to share your project. You need to be, as a project owner, they need to be happy and comfortable talking about what they're doing. We're not that great at it in Scotland, so it's a bit about getting out the comfort zone and really shouting about what you're doing. And finally, we've got running the social media. Again, it's quite important. You can run a project purely on just talking to people and email, for example, but social media really does play a key part in it as well. So it's about finding people to bolster any skills that you don't have as a project owner. That said, if somebody has all of those skills, then great, they can do it all. But it's quite a lot to take on.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the network map, and I think just in all the projects that I've run, I've found that this is the single most important stage, because everybody starts with crowdfunding and they go, well, I don't have a crowd, who am I going to send this out to? So I approach it the same way as, when you were wee and you did a sponsored walk or something. You started off by you spoke to your family and friends, you talked to your parents, your granny, your aunties, all the people that were closest to you, and then you went further afield and went around the neighbours and all the rest of it. It's the same principle when it comes to crowdfunding. You start off with your family and friends, people that are interested in what you're doing, because there's two roles that they can play. One is they can pledge, but the other thing that they can do is they can share the news about it, and that's equally as valuable. So, it's fine to say to people, can you just tell people what I'm doing? And then if they want to pledge, they will. So your family and friends are really, really useful for that. Kirsty mentioned the importance of having a project team. It's a lot easier if you have that project team. So if other members of your team do the same thing, you immediately multiply up the amount of people that will have heard about your project. So part of this is through word of mouth, but Facebook is a really important way of doing this. Just when you share it on your Facebook page, on your team's Facebook pages. One of the ways that we do it is like, I've got a business up here in our village, and I would look around our community and I'd think, okay, who else in our community would be interested in finding out about this and sharing it? So I would share it through the community group. I'd think, who else do I know in our community who'd be interested, who I can phone up or email or whatever and ask them, can they share it? I would go to local businesses that might be interested in what I'm doing as well, ask them would they share. In our case, I would go out to our customers. I'd look at the GDPR guidelines, but I'd say, well, who amongst our customers would like to hear about this, and then ask them to share it as well. I would look at who our partners are. So because my business is in tourism, I would think, okay, can I piggyback on anybody else who's got a lot of connections? So I would think, well, our local tourist association, they'll be supportive and they've got more followers than we have. I would go to Visit Scotland, because again, they have the same idea, same feel as us. And I'm going to find who else have got that we can piggyback on or stack what we're working on. And so some people are visual thinkers. I'm a visual thinker, so I like this kind of diagram here, which is a mind map. Some other people, they just love a good list or they love good spreadsheets. So I know what Kirsty and I found in the past is when you come up with this list of people, come up with it initially, then let other people look at it, your other team members, family, friends, and get them to add on people, because there will be obvious ones that you forgot about. And then come back to it, keep revisiting it, and it will grow and grow. So that is how you find your crowd, and that is what a network map is. So why do people pledge? I find it easiest to explain this in an example. So up here, I'm based in Dunkeld at the moment. And we had a young woman who set up a crowdfunder project, a woman called Flora, for the best cake shop in the world. And when she flagged this up, the reason that people funded it was because a lot of people looked at her and thought, okay, that's a local girl. We want to support her. I know her. Or I think, I wish I'd had the nerve to do that when I was her age. So sometimes it's all about supporting the project owner. Sometimes I think the project is worthwhile. It resonates with them. It could be some charitable idea or business idea that they just like. So in our case, they thought this will be really good for the village. And sometimes it's the reward. I mean, it's sometimes, in her case, she had fantastic cakes on the go, but sometimes it's membership as well. So it can be, ideally, if people come in on all three of these options, that's kind of the sweet spot. And those are the three main reasons why people will pledge on a project. So, Kirsty, let's get creative.
Yeah, let's move on to step 2. So, creating the project. This is just a screenshot of what people see as a project owner when they're registering their details. So you can see the little horizontal menu there. So about you, where we just gather some personal details about them, name, email, etc. Project basics. This is where they start entering. Excuse me. Information about the project. So the name of the project, I want just to highlight, you'll see just further down the slide there, it says create your unique web address. Every project has a unique URL which they can amend. So we call that the project slug. I don't know if you'll see that clearly on the slide, but you can see there's just a load of letters and numbers jumbled up. So it generates that, and then that can be amended to whatever they want, edited to whatever they want. So that's one of the unique things that we offer. And then they just start entering all the details. So it's a very straightforward thing. And on the right-hand side, you can see there's a little video there. We do all these little sort of 30-second to a minute-long instructional videos. So for people who potentially don't like reading instructions, they can have somebody talk them through it as well at the same time. During the process, Brenda mentioned earlier about extra funding, and we do work with a lot of third parties to provide that extra funding. So when a project owner is setting up their project, you need them to tick the box which is highlighted with the dotted lines there. It's they tick that box, and then it allows us to share their information with our funding partners, and our system will then automatically match them with anything that's applicable to their project based on the categories that they tick. So on the right hand side there, you can see, hopefully it's a bit small, but the top one is the Royal Bank of Scotland to back her business. It's actually nationwide, now the NatWest Group, but in Scotland it's still RBS. And that one is open to female entrepreneurs. It's looking to boost female entrepreneurship to try and bridge that gap of funding that still exists in the UK. So it's available for brand new startups with less than £1,000 turnover and are at least 50% owned by a female. One of the other ones that we work with on a local authority basis at the moment is Crowdfund Fife, and they have match funding available for community-based projects in Fife as well. So as we see there, over 50 partners in total that we work with across the UK. Just to fill in out a couple of the other gaps that's available in Scotland in particular. So we have Aviva, which is actually UK-wide, so it includes Scotland. And that is the Aviva Community Fund, who just recently changed, I think it was just this year, tail end of last year, they changed the way they structured this. It used to be that there'd be a board who would select which projects they would allocate money to. Now they've opened it up to their staff, and staff can pledge vouchers on the projects that they like. So that's a great way of getting support from the corporate world. But again, there's a bit of a personal touch with the staff being able to pick which projects. We also work with Stirling and Angus councils in Scotland.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you have seen a Crowdfunder project page before, but I'm going to attempt to show you one just now. Okay, so now hopefully you can all see this. Now I've picked this one. It's not right in your area, but it's such a good example of a page, and it's just up the road from you. I thought I would show you it. It's run by a woman called Laura Malloy up in Giffnock, and she ran a really successful project. She was a joy to work with, and I'll talk you through the page, what the components are and what's good. You'll see that she's got a short, snappy title. It explains succinctly what she does. It sticks in your mind as well. The project page shows you who the owner is, where they're based. And the top right-hand corner, you've got, in the business world, you call it the elevator pitch, or if you had to nail what you're doing in one short sentence, that's it. So she captured that really well. You'll see from this picture here, it's actually a video, and Kirsty's going to go into the whole thing about videos shortly. But we encourage people, if they can, put a video on the page, even a short one, to do that, because your chances of your crowdfund being successful are pretty much doubled if you've got a video. It's such a good way to capture stuff. More from Kirsty on that in a wee bit. Just underneath that video, you'll see that it says project Facebook page. And what this is showing you is she has her links to her social media pages, links to Facebook and to Instagram as well. And over there on the right, when you see the wee Facebook icon with 81 on it, this makes it easy for people to share what you're doing, and it shows you 81 people shared that page. So underneath, you'll see these wee things like when it says updates, it shows you Laura was really on the ball. She issued 13 updates in the course of her project, and that's the way that you keep everybody up to date. You can really keep them engaged. And this bit, when it says stretch target, what that means is once she hit her target of £10,000, she had a wee thing lined up to say what she would do if she actually went above and beyond that. So that's what you call a stretch target, when you actually achieve your target. So if you look down here, what you see is a good page. You'll have the story broken down into who you are, what your project is, where you are, why you're doing it, what your time scale is. We always recommend to people use the formatting tools. It's basic desktop publishing tools to break up the text into smaller bits, to highlight it, to use bold. We say drop in images because they really bring the project to life, and people buy from people. So people just love to see who is behind the project. You can see Laura and her kids here. Her video was brilliant for that. Go back and have a look at it later on, because she just did it on a phone. Really basic, but it's fantastic for that. So yeah, when you go down the left-hand side of the page, you should have everything that you need to know, but do bear in mind that about 2/3 of the people that are going to look at this page will do it on a smartphone. So they don't want war and peace. Make sure they've got the most important stuff they need to know at the top of the page. Now, over on the right-hand side, this is where we look at rewards. And what people tend to do is they tend to pin the one that they think is either going to be the most popular or the one that's maybe the best value, and they pin it up at the top. So this is what Laura's done with one at £159. So that's one you want to draw people's attention to. But below that, you'll get a selection of maybe five or six rewards, all at ascending price points. You usually put your lowest price point one here. Hers is £10, and that's basically if people just wanted to come in and support her. And then they'll increase in value, and you'll just try and come up with a selection of projects. We say get creative with it. Try and put yourselves in the shoes of the people that you've worked out are your crowd. What is their budget? What are they likely to go for? So you can go back and have a wee look at this page later on, but you'll get a good idea of what a selection of projects looks like. And in this case, the cheapest one was £10. The most expensive one was £400, and that's when a local company could come in and pay for one of these raised beds to get put into schoolyards, and then their name could get put on it. So two local companies came in on this one. So that's what a project page looks like. Go and have a good explore of our website, and you'll see more of them. So I'm just going to take back to our page, and this is the tricky bit now. I have to get back into the slideshow. And we're back in the room. Here we go. Okay, so that is what a project page looks like. Now, I think we've got Kirsty's going to talk to us about videos.
Yeah, indeed I am. So you mentioned there, Brenda, that the video that Laura's done for that project was basic but really effective. So some of the key points that we would always say for videos to make sure you get the same successful result is keep it short and sweet. Around 2 minutes is plenty, maximum 2.5 minutes. You need to keep the attention of viewers, and everybody's short on time these days. So short and sweet is best. Get someone to help you in front of the camera. Faces are powerful. We mean that by, as Brenda's just mentioned, people buy from people. So that applies to the video as well as pictures. So even if the project owner is not particularly comfortable in front of the camera, because not everybody is, it still helps if they can just do even just a few sentences to open the video, then just have it panning around, scenery, or put a little slideshow on, and then maybe just come in again at the end to say, thank you, and to ask people to pledge. But it really does help if you've got somebody. So even if it's not the project owner, they know somebody who loves being in front of the camera, then get them engaged to help them. Write a script. It pays to be prepared. So yeah, with everything else, with anything else that you do business-wise and project-wise, you want to be prepared. If you are speaking to the camera, you want to have be fairly relaxed. And if you're confident in what you're talking about and you've thought about it beforehand, then that will really come across in the video. And set the scene. Project owners should try and find scenery that's relevant to the project. So this one in the picture, for example, the project was called Organic Blooms. It was a flower growing company who were then expanding to offer training skills. And so you can see she's got the flowers behind her right shoulder there. Then in the background through the glass doors, you can see the land that they actually obviously glue the flowers on. So it's all very relevant, and it just helps to set the scene. So we're going to have a look at an example of a good video now. So I am, again, going to do the old technical thing here. I'm going to turn my camera off and start the video. So a project from the Borders, actually, and it's just a really good example of a nice, easily, cheaply made video, but it's very effective. So.
Every year, over 10 million tonnes of perfectly edible food is thrown away. Yet on the flip side, food bank usage in the Scottish Borders alone is up over 300%. This is where we come in.
We're already collecting surplus food from supermarkets and using it to cater events around the Borders, but we really need to move into our own premises now. We're opening a cafe in the centre of Galashiels.
We want our cafe to operate on a pay-what-you-can basis. This ensures that everybody can come and eat in our cafe, regardless of income. We also want to be able to offer cookery classes to the local community, whether that's children and parent classes, people affected by homelessness, students, young parents, people working on a budget. Getting people to cook together with low-cost ingredients will really help improve people's healthy eating habits.
Opening a cafe isn't cheap. We need to be able to install a kitchen, get cookery equipment, tables, chairs, cutlery, crockery.
And a really good coffee machine.
And that's where you come in.
This cafe will be hugely beneficial to all community in Galashiels and surrounding area, but we really need your help to get it going. We know it's close to Christmas and money's tight with everybody, but if you could help support it, we promise to give you an epically good cafe in Galashiels that you deserve.
Hopefully you'll all agree that that's a really good example, quite simply made, but very effective. Gets the message across, it's nice and personable, yeah, a really good example.
Mm-hmm. I find some people get really caught up in the video. It really is useful if you can grab somebody who's really confident and competent. Is often your nephews, nieces, neighbours. It's great. So one of the big challenges is one of the big questions we get is how to set the right target, because people often haven't a clue. They sometimes think that you just go in and add lots of zeros to it. As Kirsty mentioned earlier on, it's a really good way to raise money, but you do have to put the work in. And our starting point is always say to people, work out what is the absolute least that you can run your project on. What's the starting point? Because we always say it's better to set a modest target and overachieve that than to set an ambitious target and underachieve it. Because what you can do is you can set a modest target for maybe £2,000, and then you can set yourself a stretch target. So if and when you do hit your target, you can issue good news. We hit our target. Now we're going to go for this and this and this. So we always say start with the absolute minimum that you need. The other thing is we say it's not just totally random. You can actually do some basic calculations to see if you're in the right ballpark. We talked about the network map earlier on, and we're saying, well, how many people do you think you can get the word out to by using your network map? So say you need to raise about £2,000 to run your project, just for example. The first thing is if you're running a rewards-based crowdfunder, we know that the average donation is about £50. So that means that you need about 40 people to come in and get the rewards. Another thing that we've learned over the years is that for every 20 people who land on your crowdfunder page, one is likely to pledge there and then. Okay, so that means that you need, how many people did I just say? If you need 40 people to come in, you need about 800 people to visit your project page in the first place. So go back and look at your networking map and think how many people can you get to come in. So one of the things you might think, well, only 1 in 20. A lot of people will come back. How often do you see something coming up on Facebook and you think, oh, where's my wallet? I don't have time. So people can come back again and again. One of the other things we say is try and work out, we were saying earlier on, you'll have the people that you're closest to, and you can work out who are the people that you think are most likely to come in and pledge. Personally, I tend to come up with a list, and I will grade people on a scale of 1 to 4 in terms of how well I know them and how likely they are to come in with the money, and try and work out which people have sworn blind, yeah, I'm happy to come in this, and say to them, look, we're going live next Friday, and I don't want to open. We don't want to go live with absolutely no money pledged. We want to make sure that we have about 10% of the money lined up, because then we can go out with a bang. It means that people, as soon as we open, people will see that we're successful. You've got positivity, you've got a bit of news and a bit of buzz. So what I would say to people, the ones I know the best, I'd say, okay, could you come in? If I open the page quietly on Wednesday, can you come in and make your pledges early on? And you will have to nag them a few times. Even with the best intentions in the world, they will get a wee bit distracted. But I try and make sure that I line people up so that when I advertise it on the Friday when I go live, I've already got a chunk of money sitting there. And we just find that's a really, really good way to do it. So yeah, so we always say sit down and try and work out, can you plan where the first 10 to 20% will come from? So those are the do's. The don't is just choose a huge target and not have any idea where the money's going to come from. As I say, we've given you some hints on how you can, do some calculations. And don't go out. We always say to people, never launch on 0%, just because if people see your project as 0, they can look at it and go, well, that project's got a long way to go. Whereas if they see you've already got money in, they already associate you with success. So it's all about setting the right target. Okay, now we've talked about planning the project and about creating the project, and now we're getting on to actually running it. Okay, so it's all about preparation. And I was saying about getting launch ready. Now you're going to be working with people, individuals, businesses, charities, and these are the kind of things we say to our project owners when we're working with them. We always say to them, commit to a go live date. Even if you have to move it, it puts a line in the sand, and it means they've got something to focus on. Because we've just found time and time again, if they don't have a go live date, they will get kind of mission drift, and it'll just go on and on into the future. And then you realise they've gone into a time of year where they can't do it. Your project doesn't go live until you actually hit the button. So it's okay to review that date, but we say do try and get them to focus on a date. The second thing is, I talked about the network map early on. Before you go live again, go back, because you'll probably have come up with lots of new ideas and you've learned a lot. Go back and keep adding to your network map. I mentioned there now, it's not the first 10 pledges, it's the first 10% of pledges lined up. And I explained that's why. It helps you go in with a bang. It helps if you have some kind of launch event, just because it focuses you and the project team. It means you've got something to hang the opening of your project on as well, something that's newsworthy you can put out in social media and possibly through the wider media as well. So yeah, just have something to celebrate the start of it. It's a wee bit of a springboard. The next thing is we sit and you look at all the different media that you can use. You've got lots, you can use, we're talking about, I think one of the most valuable is word of mouth when you tell people, because it's easier to get your enthusiasm across. So some people you'll tell, some people you will use WhatsApp. If that's how you normally communicate with a person, then that's the way to let them know, send them a link. But some people it's Facebook Messenger, sometimes it's a phone call, all kinds of different media. But sit down and think about all your different media and how you're going to get the word out. And the other thing is your project dashboard. I mentioned it earlier on. It's really useful if this can track the reaction. You can see how many pledges you got in on different days, so you can see how successful various approaches are. So if you do this from day one, you're setting yourself up to run a fairly successful project. Now.
So yeah, just carrying on from that then. So well, I mentioned timelines earlier in the planning and the live stage. So we generally recommend projects are live for between 4 to 6 weeks. The pattern doesn't change the longer, the pattern stays the same regardless of how long a project runs for. So it's not necessarily true that the longer they're live for, the more money they will raise. Doesn't always apply. So we've based this timeline on the average of 4 weeks live. So it's really just reiterating what we're saying in terms of the promotion. So the first thing is you want to go to your team, those closest to you, the friends and family. So that's all within sort of the first week. I would say focus on those people who are supporting probably the project and the person and the project owner rather than the idea of it. They're natural supporters and guaranteed supporters. Go out to existing customers or existing supporters of, if it's a charity, for example, and then partners. You're going to move out to any affiliated partners you work with, any other businesses that you have relationships with, and see if they're going to support the project then as well. They need to see a bit of money in the pot by that point to make sure it's viable and it's worth their time and money. So that's why that's probably about week 2. End of week 2. You're going to then keep moving and boosting Facebook. So although you might have used Facebook right at the start to reach people who were close to you, they might want to look at boosting, doing Facebook ads, for example, to reach a wider audience a bit later on, about halfway through. Then they're going to make sure that they've advertised locally, so local people and local businesses. So at that point, they're looking at community newsletters, local newspapers, making sure any local businesses are aware of what they're doing. Maybe the local businesses will let them put posters up in the windows, for example. They may well have offered a reward, almost like a raffle. They may have given a reward for the project to offer. So they'll have a bit of an interest in promoting the project to make sure it's successful as well. And then the very last thing that we say is any press releases should stay till the end, because then you're going to go to a wider audience, and by that point you'd want to have a decent amount of money in the pot for people to see. And then they're going to have a look at it and think, oh yeah, I want a piece of that. It's doing really well. And any bloggers as well, because they're not going to be giving money. With bloggers, you're tapping into the power of their large network. So again, by the time you get to that point, you want some really good money in the pot for people to see.
Okay. I mentioned this is the dashboard I was talking about earlier on, and the blue lines show you the number of pledges that you got in on any particular day. And then that green mass in the background is the cumulative amount of money that you've raised. And where this is really useful is like you can see a direct correlation between something that you did and how that affected the funds that you got in. So sometimes it's not unusual when I'm working with a project and they put out a really good post on Facebook, or they've put out a great new video, or sometimes they put a flyer around the houses, and you can often see the impact on that. And so when you see a day or a period when there's a spike, go back and check what did you do on that date, and then go back and say, okay, can we replicate that later on in the project? And Kirsty mentioned that you typically get a hammock shape in a project. You get a big buy-in at the start, you get a slump in the middle, and you get a bit of an uptake at the end when you really go for it. And so by using the dashboard and seeing which days you had a better or a worse performance, you can just drop things in to try and break that hammock shape up as they did in this project here. So yeah, the dashboard is really useful. It also, it gives you information on which of your rewards have gone particularly well. So yeah, it's a really useful tool.
Okay, so quick summary then of what we've covered. It's quite a lot. So in terms of the do's, what the support you can offer, so you're looking to signpost any projects, potential projects to the resources, and share any information that you've got yourself. Empower them to make those decisions and just support them and reassure them through the process. We've mentioned the fact that planning is absolutely key. As is having the right skills. So if there's only one person and they're struggling to cover all those skills, then they need to try and reach out to people to help them. The network map is really important right at the beginning, and as a tool that develops throughout the whole process as well. So they just need to sit down, spend some time working out who they know and who is realistically going to support their project. As is the marketing plan, we always suggest setting up scheduling posts, for example, on Facebook, and having almost like a social media calendar set up so that they're ready to post and they're not panicking through that live stage. Set a realistic target, start small and overfund as opposed to starting large and then not achieving it. Get creative with their project page. They can use images, they can put video links within the story itself as well as one at the top. And I would always say leave enough time to get their page set up. They shouldn't leave it to the last minute, because it's easy, but you do need a bit of patience to get it just right. And use the resources if yourselves and project owners can have a look at crowdfunder.co.uk. At the top, you'll see an about section on the menu, and click on that, and there's a whole raft library of resources available, including the help centre, which is actually at the bottom of the main page, and there's so many articles in there. You've got the answers to almost everything that you need. Now, I think right now I'm going to put another quick poll out to you all, just to gauge where you're at, because we're at the end now of the session. So, do you feel confident that you could explain the concept of crowdfunding and signpost projects to sources of further help? So we're looking for a yes, a no, or in the middle, you'd like more information, if you want to just answer that. Great. I always like this bit, Brenda. Oh, look, it's sitting at 100% at the moment. That's good.
Oh, good. That's what we need.
That's really what's happening.
Right.
Excellent. We've done a good job.
I'm just trying to... I'm just going to mention Susan. I've been trying to type and speak at the same time. We're going to come to Susan's question in a wee second.
That's great. Let's give that a couple more seconds just to make sure we've got everyone's results in. I think they take a wee second just to register. Looking good. We're going to be posting some of you are saying, I'll end the poll in just a second. Some of you are saying you'd like more information. So we're going to be posting some links into the chat box, and probably worth mentioning just now that Brenda will be sending an email out to everybody with some links to you as well. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. I think it's pretty much settled. So we've 72% saying yes. Nobody's saying no, which is excellent. So, and 27% they're saying more information, please. That's great news. Okay, so you want to cover this one?
Okay. Right. Bear in mind what people said there now. It's not surprising that people are saying would like some more information. That's fine. We're constantly learning ourselves. So a really good starting point is if you go to our Crowdfunder page for Scotland, you'll see all of the projects that we've run across Scotland, and you'll get a really good insight into what we've been working with. You can also go to crowdfunder.co.uk, and in there you can explore the project's database. So in both those places you can have a really good nosy at what other people have produced, and you'll soon get a feel for what a successful project looks like and what a less successful project looks like. You become an armchair expert. We also, I mentioned at one stage that we have an online learning session where people can go in and work their way through certain exercises, and it helps them to dig a bit more deeply into some of the topics that we've covered today, just like setting your target and working out who your crowd is. So we can send you a link to that as well. I think one of the really useful things is I mentioned that we do webinars. Now we've got 2 coming up that might be of interest to you in particular. I think it's this Thursday that we're doing one for business. Yeah, so we're going to be running a webinar specifically aimed at business. And it's the first time we've done this, but we've worked with so many businesses, we just felt there was the demand now. And we're going to be running one next Monday as well, and it's going to be focused on charities, because you can imagine the 2 groups have got very different approaches. We also, we've been running a series of very focused webinars, about half an hour each, and they've addressed the main questions people ask us, like, how do I find my crowd? How do I create rewards? How do I create the best page possible, etc.? If you want to see the webinars that are coming up, and also the ones we've had in the past, go to the Eventbrite page, and we'll put that link in the sidebar there. If there's any of the webinars that you've missed and you'd like to see them again, the good thing about COVID is made us all go online, and we've recorded everything. So if you'd like any of those links, just drop us a line, and we'll get that to you. And I suppose the important thing is making sure that we have our contact details, and my email address is just brenda@crowdfunder.co.uk. So yeah, drop me a line and we'll make sure we get those links to you. And if you've got any questions, I saw one come in from Susan, we'll address those. But the other thing is, personally, I often like to go directly with my questions offline, because I get a bit more of a detailed answer. So feel free to email those questions in. So back to Susan's question. Susan asked, how do you decide whether to go for all or nothing or flexible? Kirsty, do you want to deal with that one?
Yeah, sure. So it really does come down to whether the project needs that set amount of money to be able to even get off the ground. So, for example, some community groups we've had before need to have, say, £10,000 to be able to fund a project to refurbish a community building, and they know that if they don't get that £10,000, they just can't do the work. So it's not fair to take people's money when they know they can't use it for that particular project. So that would be something that would fall into the all or nothing, for example. But the flexible funding might be that they've already got some funding for that building refurbishment from elsewhere, and they know that they've got other applications in, for example, for funding or grants, and they know that they would like 10,000, but they could do some of the work with, say, 5,000 if they got that instead. So if they go for flexi funding, they could put a target of 10,000, but if they only raise 5,000, they can honestly tell people that support the project that 5,000 will still go towards that particular project and help it otherwise, and they will be able to bridge that funding gap from other sources. So that's probably one of the easiest analogies, I think, in terms of explaining how you make that decision.
Okay. I've just put my email address in the sidebar, as I say, brenda@crowdfunder.co.uk. If you've got any further questions, we're always happy to hear them. That's our job. Just drop us a line and we'll do our best to answer them. I'll be sending you an email out later on today, as Kirsty said, and there'll be a link to this session again, and we'll put in some of the key links we've had in the chat bar. So thanks everybody for coming along. Thanks for your questions and all the chat. And yeah, keep in touch. We'd love to hear your ideas. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, cheerio.
Bye.